Hey guys, Caleb's Cards here, coming at you with another World War II video. And these are going to be some autographs featuring World War II veterans and even some Korean and Vietnam veterans, sometimes mixed in, that I received in through Scott Masters. I met him through the live streams uh, from Veterans Breakfast Club, and he just had asked, if when I'm writing to veterans or people of interest, if I'd be willing to shout out him and give some contact info. And I've been able to help him find some addresses or get him in contact with some people, even get some people on the show. So that was really awesome. And in return, he just kind of helps me out when he does his interviews. He just asks these veterans if they would be willing to sign a little something, and they most of the time do, and they are willing to uh, send some letters back to myself as well as a few other people who help him out as well. And I also usually try to supply him with some stamps at least once or twice, 3 times a year. It depends on how many he's sending out. And yeah, so he helps add to the military collections. That's always awesome. I guess being able to help out a friend and be able to add to your collection. And I like to save them and do these videos for you and do about three every Wednesday. I'm trying to do that this year, so for as long as I have stuff to do. And so I got these three that we can go through today and just kind of read them with you. Uh, so this is going to be for Bob Harbula. So I believe he would be a Korean War veteran. So he was born in 1931 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So he's been on the Veterans Breakfast Club. I think he usually attends it as well. He grew up in a working class area there, and he expected to work on the railroad, as had his father and grandfather. As a young boy, he saw the Second World War unfold all around him, and he was inspired by the stories of bravery and heroism. He was confused at the outset of the Cold War, wondering who the enemy was, but Bob opted to join the Marines in any case. He was then off to Parris Island for boot camp, where they turned Bob into a Marine. His next stop was 8th and I, the Marine base in Washington, D.C. Marines at this base guarded the President and performed all kinds of ceremonial and security duties, including at Shangri-La, later Camp David. It was during this time that the Korean War broke out, and Bob was one of the first Marines to volunteer. He was sent to Camp Pendleton and then on to Japan, then was on to Korea itself, where Bob was involved in MacArthur's celebrated landing at Incheon. Incheon? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Incheon. The battle was a success, with Bob and his fellow Marines quickly gaining a foothold and moving inland towards Seoul. They won the battle, but were removed from the front and taken all the way around the peninsula to Wonsan, where they eventually made an unopposed landing. They moved inland. In one instance, Bob was involved in a truck convoy which was transporting North Korean prisoners. On the return trip, they were ambushed and came under heavy fire. Rather than return to the trucks at the rear of the convoy, Bob crawled forward and tried to help his wounded comrades. He also instructed the driver to turn around and get out of there, with Bob memorably grabbing a 30 cal machine gun at his hip and firing at the North Koreans as they made their way out. The action led to Bob becoming a squad leader, a role he would play in the fateful Battle of Chosin Reservoir in November 1950. American and British forces had moved into the area when Chinese forces pinned them down in the cold and barren landscape, forcing the Americans and British to fight their way out of the forbidding terrain. Bob and the rest of George's company fought valiantly in those hills, but they were overwhelmed by the waves of Chinese soldiers. Bob did manage to get out, and he rescued a wounded comrade in the process. Bob ruptured his Achilles tendon in that process, and he was evacuated, eventually making his way to an army hospital in Japan. He recuperated and returned to Korea just over a month later, and went on to become involved in the Chinese 1951 Spring Offensive. The Marines held onto Hill 902 during that time, securing a key position that the Chinese were attempting to take. His time to ship out came in June 1951, and Bob returned home and decided to leave the Marines. It took him some time to readjust his civilian life, but Bob did it, going on to marry and raise his own family. And here's his photos again. You can see he's got a lot of medals there. So wow, what a heroic story there from Bob. Um, and he was, born 1931, squad leader by November 1950. So he's basically like 19 years old. It says, Dear Caleb, sorry I'm late with this, but have spent the last few months in the hospital fighting lung cancer. Semper Fi, Bob Harbula. I'm sorry, Mr. Harbula. I hope you are doing better. Um, no problem on, the delay in that. I don't think that was out for very long, to be honest. So I do appreciate him signing. I do hope he's doing better. And thank you again, Scott, for getting in touch with him and having him send something over. And thank you again, Todd, for hosting his story and others on the Veterans Breakfast Club. Definitely make sure you go check out their links down below if you're interested. I usually try to watch on like Facebook Live or YouTube Live. My Zoom has been working for quite some time, so that's usually where I watch is YouTube or Facebook. But that's yeah. So I try to watch those at least on like the Mondays. Uh, the so those are usually pretty fun. But they do have multiple shows as well. This next one is going to be a Canadian veteran. Canadian World War II veteran is Jack Reed. Just a little short one, but Jack Reed was born in Toronto and joined the Royal Canadian Navy in 1943, working as a depth charge operator on the HMCS Longueuil. Mr. Reed participated in numerous convoys of military and supply ships, making the treacherous journey across the North Atlantic. After the end of the war and one last convoy across the Atlantic, Mr. Reed returned home and became a police officer in Toronto. Mr. Reed is active in the Toronto Military Police Veterans Association and has served as its president. Very cool. So again, here's his pictures up close again. Mr. Reed. See if I can read the note down below where he signed. It says, Dear Caleb, I am pleased to see you are interested in World War II history. I don't know how old you are, but I joined the um, Canadian Navy when I was 18. So I'm 27. So, I am now living in the retirement home. Good luck with your future endeavors. Sincerely, Jack Reed. So thank you, Mr. Reed, and thank you for your service and your continued support as well as law enforcement. So that's very awesome. And this one should be pretty fun too. We have, this is going to be I believe this is a German. At least he grew up in Germany. I don't know if, okay, so he grew up in Germany, but I don't think he's, was a German World War II veteran. Just taking a glance there, but this is Wolfram Forster. He was born October 22nd, 1925 in Berlin, Germany. He grew up in that city during the interwar years, witnessing the political changes that were taking place around him as he attended school. Wolfram's father was a Great War veteran who became a police officer and who later fired when he refused to join the Nazi Party. He was conscripted in the Second World War and served a short period of time in Poland at the outset of the war. All the while, his young son did well at school and was recommended to go on to higher education, eventually in the direction of medicine. The family saw the buildup of anti Semitism and persecution, and once the war was underway, they dealt with the restrictions and air raids. Wolfram was in the Hitler Youth, as was mandatory, and when he was given a choice of direction, he chose first aid. So he was technically a German World War II veteran then. But that's still cool. But it does show you that um, not everybody was agreeing with Hitler and didn't want to, serve. So his father was forced to, and maybe Wolfram was kind of forced to also, so he went into medicine. Um, something that would guide him, he chose first aid, something that would guide him in the war and in the rest of his life. Wolfram and his family also learned to be careful during this time. They heard stories of people executed for sabotaging the war effort, so even listening to BBC broadcasts would put them in jeopardy. Wolfram was drafted into the army when he was 19, and he was sent to Denmark, what the Germans called the Whipped Cream Front. Wolfram's luck came to an end, though. He was shipped to Pomerania, where he and his troop came under Russian artillery fire. Wolfram was quite ill at this point, and he was hospitalized, suffering from an infection. He was was given time to see his parents and then in a short order was sent back to the front, the Western Front. One day he was in a field with his fellow German soldiers and they came under artillery fire. Wolfram took cover, and after the firing stopped, 3 American soldiers came upon him, and Wolfram was taken as prisoner of war on April 10th, 1945. He was in American custody for several months, and in July he was transferred to the French and moved to Colmar. Here he and the other prisoners were used for demining, dangerous work where Wolfram recalls that many of the men were killed and maimed. The French held Wolfram until 1947 when he made his way back to Berlin. He went through the American sector, and upon entering the Soviet zone, he was taken prisoner again. Wow. He was held for a time and then unexpectedly released to his parents. Wolfram returned to his medical studies and went to do his internship in New Jersey. He loved the U.S. and wanted to make it his own, but the bureaucracy did not allow it. Back in Germany, though, he was able to secure a job at the Bitburg Air Force Base, and that became his ticket for an eventual return to the U.S., where he would make a career in the Army, achieving the rank of colonel in the Medical Corps. So he also served in the U.S. Army as well. So that's pretty interesting. He says down the note below, it says, "Hello, Caleb. It was wonderful to meet you on Zoom. Best wishes for the holiday season. Wolfram Forster, 11/3/2023." So there's some more pictures again up close, and then there's the note and the signature. So we have a U.S. Korean War veteran, we have a Canadian World War II veteran, and we have a German World War II veteran who also was an American after World War II American veteran. So I'd say that's a pretty interesting video right there. So I do hope you enjoyed reading those men's stories. I know I greatly did, and I'm super happy to have them in the military autograph collection. I have all my autographs of military, so um, the book's getting huge. It gets bigger and bigger every year, so that's always a plus. Thank you so much for watching and taking a listen. Again, make sure you go look at the links down below if you want to see what Scott and Todd and what others do down below. I also have links for addresses in case you're interested for like my sports returns. Sometimes I put some of the World War II veterans if I have them. I don't have these people's, these folks' addresses. I keep those private just because I don't have their permission. And but I do have all my other successes reported on those sites. And then I also got my eBay. I got Facebook. I got Instagram. Whatever you're looking for or need to get in touch with me, those are the places to go. So thanks for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.